everyone, welcome to this episode of Context is King. I'm Rebecca Brayton, and with me as always is WatchMoto founder and CEO Ashkan Karbasfrooshan to discuss will coronavirus do what an election could not or would not have. What do I mean by that? Oh, Ash, why don't you take it?
Well, basically, I think a lot of the younger voters in the U.S. who were grown frustrated with being told for a whole generation that you got to go to school, you got to incur the debt to get your degree, to come out and then be scolded for buying expensive avocado toast and not getting the right jobs, exactly, and being blamed for it. It's like, have we blamed the millennials for coronavirus yet?
Wait for it.
Yeah, it'll happen eventually. Unfairly. And so I think they were very much excited about the possible presidency of an Elizabeth Warren, or in particular Bernie Sanders, that for all intents and purposes, as of the filming of this episode, looks like he will not get the nod. So one reason why they were doing that is because it was just crazy that they're saddled with debt, not getting the kind of jobs that they want, et cetera, plus no real social safety net, no health, many other things. So ironically, I don't think that we will actually see in the US the kind of China or Italy-like lockdown.
No, because people can't afford not to go to work.
But before that, and I agree with you because that would lead to a whole depression, it's also because Americans are so independent, you can't tell me what to do, that they will never, if they don't want to give up their guns, they're not going to want to give up their freedom to go to the mall and go to the theaters. So I actually think America will just not go for that. There is somebody like the straws, like that symbol of like, I will use my plastic straw. It is a nation. America is both the greatest and the craziest country in the world for that. Americans are they don't have that social structure, and there's not that kind of, there might be that government overwatching you, but it's not like they could then be like, you stay in your home or we're going to shoot you. And then in fact, then you go back to Second Amendment, that's why the government doesn't tell me what to do. So what does that mean? Well, that means basically that unlike, say, a Singapore where they were able to contain it because they not only had SARS and avian flu and all this, but they actually have a system where they're like, hey, if you don't go in your home, we're going to kill you. And the people are like, yeah, you will kill me and maybe you should kill me. The reality is that in America, this is going to kind of linger and get out of hand and yada, yada. So I think we don't know what the full health impact of this is going to be. We kind of know what the economic impact is and that it's going to be bad. It's going to be really, really messy. In fact, companies have already started to lay people off because of the coronavirus. And I can tell you...
on what basis?
Well, I'm going to get to that.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's a good question. So if you are like travel, if you're an airline, you're not going to have as many flights. So obviously pilots, flight attendants stay home, and mechanics and all. If you're a hotel, you're not going to have as many rooms to clean. You don't have as much room service. But there are spillovers. If you are in the events business, that industry is kaput right now. If it moves to virtual, well, you don't need people setting up the props. You might need people setting up the equipment and all that, but then the derivative industries of restaurants and hotels see a loss as well. But I assure you that yes, there are a lot of decision makers that are going to absolutely use the coronavirus as a convenient excuse to remedy things that they didn't like about their business or that they regret. Forget big corporations that have inherently a DNA to just do bad things. Even a lot of these startups that they launch and they're very utopian and got these very snazzy mission statements and vision statements, they maybe regret that they made certain hires. They maybe regret opening up an office in a given someplace. In boom times, it's bad for them to go and shut it down and say, we're going to put the genie back in the bottle. Right now, they are absolutely drawing up war plans to go and conveniently use coronavirus to basically lay off a lot of people. So the economic impact, once you get over the uncertainty, which is bad in of itself, the economic hit, the recession is going to be just traumatic, and that's really sad to see. But then I think that is exacerbated in the US where there's no social safety net. So Jon Favreau, the Obama speechwriter,
the other,
what did he say on Twitter?
Where am I? This is what Donald Trump just called a radical left agenda. Free coronavirus testing, paid emergency medical leave, extended unemployment insurance, food assistance, help for healthcare workers. Yeah, that is radical.
I mean, that's the idea, right? We are so blessed in Canada. People are always quick to point to the Scandinavian. Look, I think like Western advanced nations, as they call them in quotation marks, But in Canada, we are very lucky. I think in the US, the heights are amazing, but the depths are really, really shitty. So I read another stat that the US, quote, has fewer hospital beds per capita than Calabria. So I do think that when the dust settles, there are a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump that are going to say, hey, wait, there are those that are going to vote for him until the grave, their own grave. That's just like, you can't change some certain people's mind. Keeping it real dumb, to quote Chris Rock. What did he say about black people versus, and you know what? Keeping it real dumb. That's, I think now you could kind of say, if you were still supporting Donald Trump, forget the Second Amendment, forget the judges, forget whatever you want, forget the grifting, forget anything that you want. Ultimately, leadership is about what do you do in these moments. I mean, to say the man gets an F for his conduct since the coronavirus comes is an insult to those who've gotten Fs in things, right? But that being said, let's move on. I do think, though, that when the dust starts to settle, I think coronavirus' silver lining is the American people are going to wake up and realize that while capitalism is good, it's not perfect, it's a better system than the alternatives, human beings are bad, and in an extreme capitalist setup, you do get humans acting really selfishly and in way too much self-interest. I think that laissez-faire capitalism is good because you create jobs, you create opportunities, but America kind of drank the Kool-Aid a bit too much, and it went too much to the extreme where it is...
Sorry, what's an example of laissez-faire capitalism?
Laissez-faire capitalism was a concept in like Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations that like there's this invisible hand that kind of like fixes things in the long term and people act maybe in their own self-interest, but in the end, like use an example. As an entrepreneur, I create a business, and ultimately, it creates jobs for people, and then there's competition, and I got to kind of react, and there's this invisible hand. So laissez-faire is the government does not get involved. You let individuals do things that may seem they are in their self-interest, but in the end, there's like spillovers and externalities that are positive, and like if there's negative, society, like technically the community goes, hey, big bad company, don't put crap in the ocean. What's happened is we've kind of deregulated, we've gone to the extreme where you see in the US, there's no testing. The government comes in and they cut the CDC, and 2 years later, they're like, oh shit, we're unprepared for this. So I think that a good number of people who had voted for Donald Trump probably realized that, this is not working, and we can't have 4 more years of this because you need somebody that can actually address these crises, and he's not it. But I think even the capitalists, like I like to call myself an ethical capitalist, whatever the hell that means, everything's relative. But I do think that even a lot of capitalists that are like, okay, you want to be careful with how much the government gets involved and how much money and resources are wasted, you can't in clear conscience. Like I've slept better, ironically, of late than I've had in the longest time, because I kind of am like, again, it's a reminder of how we have chased the wrong things as a society, extreme hoarding, extreme me, stepping on others to get ahead. And I think at the end of the day, what is it good for if there's this global pandemic that wipes out, if not wipes out, that affects all these people? Now, maybe I'm a bit of an idealistic, naive mofo, but I do think that enough people in the US are going to really take stock of the decisions that they've made, both in terms of who they elect in office and who the leaders are of their corporations and all that. And hopefully you're going to see this kind of regression to the mean. Now, Bernie Sanders could not do that revolution. I think you saw that the Americans ultimately don't want a socialist-like regime in place. But maybe coronavirus was a big kick in the butt for them to realize that the current system is not sustainable. Mic drop.
I got nothing. What do you think? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time.